Hey guys, it's Nick and Kyle from Tales, Ales, and Trails. We got a new exciting episode for you today. We recently sat down with Jason Pieper of Paradise Brew Werks. Had a great conversation. It's an exciting, it's a little longer episode.
Yeah,
We got a
yeah,
lot of
went long form
information.
with it. Really got kind of a deep dive into Jason's background and kind of how Paradise Brew Werks came to be. It's one of the newest breweries in Chico, California. Great conversation with him about his passion for craft beer and kind of the journey that he and Paradise Brew Werks have been on. So I'm really excited for you guys to check this one out. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think about it. We love being able to do these episodes, and hopefully we're going to do a lot more of them for you here in the future. So without further ado, please enjoy this episode with Paradise Brew Werks' Jason Pieper.
Enjoy.
Well, Jason, thanks so much for having us here. You know, a hot summer day in July, but we're incredibly happy for you to have us. And how are things going today?
It's great, man. Yeah, it's a good day in the brew house. Right now, there's a lot of other hats I'm wearing as well, but it's like it could be emails or answering calls or fielding questions or whatever. But it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like that comes with the territory of brewery startup.
brewery.
You got to wear all the hats.
Exactly.
So kind of to maybe ground the conversation we're going to have today, I don't think we can start talking about the journey of Paradise Brew Werks without talking about your journey and
Sure.
kind of how you got to this point. So I want to see if you could start by telling us a little bit more about yourself, about your brewing background, and kind of where this passion for craft beer came from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think probably I think probably the best way to start it would be to, the first time that I sort of saw something that would resemble craft beer, because I'm a little bit older, so it was way back in the early '90s, and this beer went by, and it just had this beautiful glassware, and it had this amber color, and somebody said the word anchor steam, and I thought, whoa, that's pretty neat looking.
So good.
And I thought, man, I want one of those. And so the next time we hung out there, me and my buddies, I ordered one, and it was like, whoa, game changer. This thing is just beautiful. And, basically had only been, drinking American lagers and pilsners and things up until that time. I was pretty young. I was like 23. But discovering that and, having things like Sam Adams come along and Sierra Nevada, and it was just like, okay, this is cool. So we actually started bottle sharing before that was like a term.
Yeah.
Buddies and stuff. So that's really where it began, way back in those days, just sort of as a craft beer nerd. In whichever wave that is. I always call it like the second wave, I believe.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was where it started for me.
Yeah. So from there, what made you kind of get into brewing? Like, where did that start?
I mean, I definitely was conscious of the idea of home brewing.
Sure, yeah.
But for whatever reason, I had other passions and focuses. Music was a big one. And I just never quite got around to it.
Yeah.
Until I had come home from actually a situation musically that was a pretty high achievement that I wasn't sure that I was anytime soon going to have something like that happen again. And I had gotten a homebrew kit for Christmas, and so a lot of the brewers, you'll hear the story of their arc is something like, I was homebrewing for about 10 years and then I turned pro. Mine was a little bit different. I brewed 10 batches and turned pro. And so I just completely geeked out on it. I went from like a 1-gallon system. I got a second carboy on the second batch, and then I went to 5, and I brewed a handful of batches after that. And I was at a place where I was afforded the ability to say, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this professionally.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just was at an age where I had left a career that was, after about 10 years, I left a career that I was just really happy to be not trying to build anymore. And, I had hit this high note with music, and I wasn't sure if I was going to do anything quite that big again. And so the brewing just kind of felt like this seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
Like financially, I know it's super viable. At that time breweries were like just going vertical, with success. And so, so that was it. I got my foot in the door. I had a friend named Adriana from Three Weavers, and she was a brewer. And I said, how did you get in there? And she said, just get your foot in the door somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. And so I got my foot in the door at a brewery called Brew Rebellion, which is unfortunately, they were kind of like about to, fall apart, unfortunately. But they Andy, the brewer there, he had called himself a self-proclaimed caveman brewer. He had a bunch of beers that were really amazing beers and super creative, way ahead of a lot of the breweries that later are famous for, like WeldWorks comes to mind, like
Sure.
some of those type of things that they do, which I love. They're one of my favorite breweries. But Brew Rebellion had been doing it way before that. I remember going into a liquor store and I saw this bomber, 22-ounce format, of course, a bomber bottle of this Saturday morning cartoons with Fruity Pebbles. The bomber was rolled in white wax and then rolled in Fruity Pebbles. And I'm like, there's got to be some kind of food violation with this. But I thought those guys are cool,
Yeah.
And it was funny how later on that was the foot that I got the door, in the door.
Yeah.
And so that began the beginning of commercial brewing. And then so from there, Brew Rebellion, it was basically it was just dying out. They were done. And they started working with another brewery called Inland Empire Brewing that had just been taken over by a guy, and that was also pretty shaky. But Inland Empire was known, and they had gotten in the game pretty early for small craft breweries in the Riverside area back in Southern California. And so that was on a 10-barrel system. The other system at Brew Rebellion was kind of a smaller, really like a glorified homebrew system, maybe like 2 barrels or something like that. And so we started brewing on a 10-barrel system, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. And I learned a bunch of stuff there. But it was very, the brewer was, he was kind of like driving from LA and like doing like 2 or 3 batches over like 24 hours and then driving home. It was really weird. Like, I knew that this was probably not the way this should be done, right? So, but so that lasted for a little while. But one of the things that would happen is, at the end of the day, and by the way, all this at this time was all just unpaid intern stuff.
Really?
I hadn't made it.
Okay, so it was really just, I want to get my foot in the door. Okay.
Yeah, I hadn't made a I hadn't made a cent. I wanted to go to Siebel, but it was really expensive, and I just was like, I'll just do it hands on, and so we, after work, we have a beer, and so the beers were kind of iffy, and like there was this constant note in the beers, and I still was trying to figure out like, what is that note in the beer? But there was this one beer that was a cherry gose, and I was like, man, this is just beautiful. And they're like, oh, well, that's not brewed here, that's Don. I'm like, who's Don? And so
bring me to Don.
Yeah. I just saw Don at Bluesapalooza. It was great to see him. But he was across town at a brewery called Urail, and Urail's still going good.
Yeah.
And Don was a real technical brewer, extremely different environment. But I let Don know that I was available, and so that I started brewing with Don on a 10-barrel steam system, and started I started saying, oh, okay, the water chemistry, and all these other elements that were previously not really, part of the game. And so, yeah, the real science of it. And Don was basically like a stern, like college professor or something.
Right.
He could like level you pretty good, and he would say, we don't guess, we know, and
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And but he instilled a lot of other ideas in me, like standing on the shoulders of giants and things like that. These people that do something amazing, figure out what it is and then do it yourself,
Right.
and maybe add your own twist to it. So I brewed with Don, and we did a lot of pilot. He had a pilot system and the 10-barrel system, so we were doing some nice work there. And I had gotten wind that there was a brewery that was being developed in the mountain area where I lived. I was actually commuting from a beautiful mountain town called Green Valley Lake down to Riverside each day for free, just learning.
Oh, yeah.
And I had heard about this opportunity over in Lake Arrowhead, and I thought, wow, so I went over there and just kind of sight unseen, and went over there, and I just kind of knocked on the door, and it was this beautiful metal building that used to be some kind of like warehouse or something, a maintenance facility or something, but the lake was like right there, and they had the floor all tore up. They were getting ready to put the slot drains in and things like that. And I met Travis, and we talked, and I came back another time, and I think the third time I came back, he's like, okay, let's do this. And and I told him, I'm a little bit green, but I have a lot of drive to, I could be ready, because they were still like 6 months away, from things. And so I went into kind of a hyper mode. Basically, I just outlined what will I need and where will I need to be by go time, and I was ready to go. So go time, it came, and by that time I had done pilot batches with Don, and Don was helpful in not really necessarily the recipe formation. What I was doing there was I was working with the owners to develop a profile that matched what they felt would be their style.
Sure.
And I love that. It was great. But along the way, I had total creativity as well, as far as like, they just said, like, for example, they said, do something with cucumber in it. And I said, sure. Okay, cool. And so I went back and I'm like, cucumber kolsch, that kind of has a ring to it, something light, something dry, a little note of cucumber. And so, yeah, I developed all the pilot batches and they all really turned out great, and they were stoked, and it felt great to deliver for them. From there, we went into like full production on a 7-barrel system. Travis had the conversation with me like at 6 months. He's like, man, we should have went bigger. And I'm like, that's a good problem,
Yeah.
But it was
Good problem to have.
yeah, it was just completely maxed out. So
Yeah.
I was brewing and brewing and brewing and brewing, and it was just an amazing, like, triumphant thing to see Lake Arrowhead just become, so loved and lively. It's an awesome community over there. And so, we got to a point where it was like, yeah, it's time to do our own thing,
Right.
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 And so that actually was like the kind of the whole first chapter, basically. Setting out to go after that to do our own thing, that was a whole nother journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I wanted to go. I feel like I don't want to take the words out of your mouth here, but as you were, getting these different experiences, getting your foot in the door, as you say, I got to believe this was kind of always the goal, to take what you
Yeah.
learned from these experiences
Yeah.
and go out and do your own thing
Yeah.
and really establish yourself with your own brewery. Can you take us through the timeline of where kind of the transition to coming up here and starting Paradise Brew Werks?
Yeah, where the switch flipped.
Yeah. I think, back when I was homebrewing, I think, probably from music, it's like, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it to like blow my own mind, or whatever you want to call it. So even with homebrewing, I was like, when I would package the beers, I would like come up with names and labels, and I mean, really, it looked like something was already professionally done. I had labels created and everything else, and cost a little bit of money, but I didn't care. I did it for myself, but also just to have some fun with the family.
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. And actually, like, one of the, I think, second or third batches was a thing called blueberry pancakes, and it was a cream ale with blueberry in it. There wasn't really a lot of pastry or anything on it, but there's a little bit of blueberry in there, or cream ale, and that batch made it up to Paradise.
Really?
Yeah. So around that same time that I started homebrewing, it was a little bit after, but we started traveling to Paradise.
Yeah.
And visiting my wife's sister in her new relationship. And so, we had been coming to Northern California, and we were coming every quarter, and we were just falling in love with the vibe up here. And when we would leave, we would have this genuine sort of like, it was like a genuine, like, I mean, where we lived, it was beautiful. We had, beautiful lake town in the mountains and stuff like that. And we had our friends and family, but I think it was just this overall, like, kind of vibe thing that we were like really enjoying.
It's like a daydream.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah, a little, yeah, totally. Yeah. Like, we'd get in that area as you're kind of all those, golden hills,
Yeah.
you're leaving the area, and it's like, man, it's just beautiful here. And, leaving with new, great, family memories and things. But so with the brewing, that we said, okay, we're going to do a brewery. Right. And so there really were only 3 choices on the table. It was our hometown, which would have been really cool, because we have a real love, where we grew up.
Yeah.
Everyone does. And then there was Colorado, the #1 most saturated state for breweries. I'm sure it probably still is.
Yeah.
And the kids are there. Taylor graduated UNC, and Ryan moved out there, and so. And we love Colorado too.
Yeah. Lot to love.
But the thing was that, post campfire, we came up like in January, and it literally looked like a war zone.
Yeah.
And it just was, I just remember this like beige and gray color. It was just everywhere, and it was so bad. And but what happened was, after that, we started seeing the recovery.
Yeah.
And it was like, man, this is really incredible. And we saw our family go through living in these cramped quarters in RVs, you know, in like parking lots and stuff like that, which, by the way, we'd be traveling out to hang out quarterly.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the greatest of times, you know, but we were just literally in a parking lot, like in Dibbs or something. But what happened was we thought, you know, if we could be part of the recovery of Paradise. And we always thought it needed a brewery anyways.
Of course.
It never had a brewery. And we thought, gosh, even a small brewery. I mean, Roger up in Magalia, you know, he was packaging some beer, but there was no tap room though. And so we always thought, man, a brewery in Paradise sure would be cool. And also speaking of Roger Priest with his previous brewery, we had noticed at things like in Party in the Park, when we would visit, there was like a local acceptance for his beer, and I'm like, that's pretty cool, you know. And so so we just said, you know what, let's go for it. And we did some preliminary studies because we knew the septic thing would be a big issue, and a lot of people still think to this day that that's why we didn't build. It actually had nothing to do with it. But yeah, it was we looked at all the you know, we did a business plan, and we found that it was going to be doable. And our goal was to start a small, humble thing, self-funded. And so, from there, there was a twist. So we had actually leased a building, and we were going to do a little 3-barrel system, like a spike system or something like that, and just start humble and just have a small, deal. We ran the numbers and all the wastewater and all the other stuff. It was going to be fine. But we were speaking with a business advisor locally. And he had mentioned, you know, he had really felt like you guys need to go bigger. You know, I really believe that you guys could do something bigger. And you don't want to do this because of tenant improvements. And, you know, he had a good sharp mind on his shoulders with business. And I just kept coming back to him saying, how are we going to fund it? You know, because I don't think we have the ability to do that, SBA, all the other stuff. He's like, well, I think it's going to be a blend of, private equity, SBA, you know, family and friends. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, you need to, you know, do the metal building that you always wanted, you know, buy a piece of land in Paradise that's cheap. And we're like, gosh, that's going to be a lot bigger endeavor. But you know what? We decided to take his advice. And I still thought, how are we going to fund it? You know?
Right.
So
it's always the question. And the money.
So we looked for land. You know, that was another 3 or 4 month process. And I should mention that during this time, I took a job brewing at Feather Falls. Which was a really great experience. You know, and I worked there with some of the guys that are still there, Joel. And Dale wasn't there at the time. Dale's a real great guy, a local guy. He's probably here tonight, actually playing music. And Andy. But it was a phenomenal, beautiful, specific mechanic 15-barrel system, and it didn't have rakes on the mash tun though. That sucked because man, you had to like just be in there, just sweating it. Try not to get the sweat in the mash. You know, oh my gosh. But beautiful system, and a lot of things I hadn't ever seen before that were Sierra Nevada thinking, and I learned several new things with cellaring. I didn't have any, unfortunately at that time, they didn't allow me any creative, flow in that direction. But I was in this mode where I was like, man, I'm running these recipes to the T. And that's what felt good to me. So I was brewing over there, and we found a stellar property. We got really lucky on it. It's the old Big Five at Skyway at Maxwell. And it had all this infrastructure that was already built in, and I'm like, man, that's really going to help out with things because we don't have to pay for all that stuff. As far as parking lot signage, lights, it's all there. And there was no dirt work. That's another consideration. And so it was really optimal and I'm like, man, all we need to do is, dirt work, get concrete pads, metal building. That's going to be way better. We went to SBA and it didn't work. We couldn't get funding. And we're like, okay, so what do we do now? And then around this time, I had met Ryan from Ramble, and he was actually not even open yet. And we just both were talking, and I think he felt that, he was like, this guy's going to open a brewery. I can tell.
Right.
And so he's like, let's get to know each other. And I was like, yeah, man. And Ryan had just been a great friend to the brewery. Him and Danielle are really nice people. And, I'd call him on something, and he'd call me right back or text me or whatever. And we had a bunch of conversations, and, to just helping each other out.
Yeah.
But he'd give me the idea to fund it through private equity, which was one of the options. And I used to be a finance guy, so I wasn't like afraid of that.
Sure.
Or something like
wasn't foreign. Yeah.
not at all. And so I thought, yeah, I mean, family, friends, and maybe probably a bunch of locals would be really into this. And so we set out to fund the brewery, and we made a splash. It actually was kind of funny because when it first came out, it was like crickets, and we're like, oh no,
Yeah.
and it was crickets for like a few weeks, and we're like,
Sure.
oh wow, and of course, family started showing up, and then we started having people actually like calling us and being like, I want to check this out, and so we worked on that, and it was pretty. It was a pretty warm feeling to see people like, look, I want to, I've met you, I've talked to you, like, yeah, let's help you.
Yeah. I want to be a part of this. I want to support. Yeah.
They were really just like, sort of like, kick the tires and like, I believe in this guy.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
And so, so that's what we did. But the problem was it didn't get to a safe place to build.
Sure.
And so, you have to hit kind of a milestone before it makes sense to do it, in case, you just don't want to like, hey, we got a little bit of money, let's go ahead and let's get the concrete in.
Right.
So you got to hit a certain point to where you can at least get to this, point.
Yeah.
And for me, that point was to be able to at least entirely build the facility as far as the metal building. Even if it was empty and there was no brewing equipment, we still
get the structure.
Yeah. If we could get to that place to be able to do that, at least then we would have an asset that we could sell if we couldn't do the other portion, which would be all the brewery stuff and all this kind of stuff. And so we didn't reach it. We made it to like halfway or something like that. And it was like, okay, well, what do we do? And on those kind of things, you don't really want to have it open for a long time. Mm-hmm. Somebody said, why don't you talk to the Barretts? And I thought, well, we're really focused on what we're doing. And he said, well, you should just talk to them. They really want to retire, and and I was like, well, Paradise Brew Werks, that's what I'm all about.
Right.
And I thought Secret Trail at Chico, I was just like, and by the way, I love the brewery. We were in here all the time, and we would always be doing the little crawl. I mean, we would start off at innovation.
We call it the trifecta.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we would start off at the the sidebar. Maybe sometimes go over and get a pizza with Roland and have a beer. Go over to Ramble and then end up at Secret Trail.
Yeah.
We always would end up at Secret Trail though, and so but yeah, so we sat down with the Barretts, and we kind of looked at what they were doing, and it just at that time it wasn't really for us. But I did propose an idea of having a dual brewery. Because I had known that they had sort of that South Bar, as they called it, a whole second set of taps, and I hadn't really been to any, but I had heard of several breweries that were literally on the same location and kind of playing with that sort of idea of having two different breweries in the same spot, which is like super cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I forget different tap systems. That's
yeah.
I
made it,
and if the beers are different enough, it can be really kind of cool. But I had pitched that idea as a possibility, and I said, well, why don't we take over the original tap room as Paradise Brew Werks, and Secret Trail could remain in the larger tap room. And they were like, man, we want to retire. We're not looking to do anything like that. And so the conversation kind of died out. And so we were just continuing on, trying to get the funding done. But we had finally gotten into like, okay, what's plan E or F, and it was like, let's go back to the simple idea, And so we started looking at a few buildings to lease and go back into a simple direction and end up self-funding it. And, we thought, well, we can sell the property or we can just keep it, I don't know. So we just looked to go back to a smaller direction and self-fund. And then once again, one of the investors with Secret Trail, he said, you need to talk to the Barretts again.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, okay. And then I thought about that double brewery idea, of course. And so we sat down with them, and the deal had been structured a little differently.
Sure.
And we thought, oh man, that's the open door.
Sure.
That's the open door. And you look around at this brewery, it would take millions to build it. Today.
Yeah.
In 2025.
You bought more than bare bones here.
Yeah.
There's this whole there's this whole community of people either here tonight, with
because
the
of
open
it, man,
mic.
for sure.
Yeah, it's
one of the biggest
really,
things.
it's one of the things I told Charlie. I said, you hit all the marks. You did you got a GABF. It's a beloved brewery. You guys have beautiful beers. You did it.
Yeah.
It's true. And so I just thought, man, that's the open door. That's the open door. And so we just decided, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And by this time we had launched an alternating proprietorship over at Heretic. And I mentioned off camera that like right in the middle of that, they were going bankrupt and stuff. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, we had just hired people to help us get all that stuff together. And it's like, oh no. And he's like, well, I think you're going to be okay. And so we got in the door and we started brewing.
Yeah.
And my hands were a little tied on a few things, which was really painful. And because Heretic's gone now, I'll go ahead and talk about it a little bit. But like they switched one of my base grains on my very first beer. And I was like, man, this is my first beer to market. And you switched the base grain on me, and you've got all this working relationship that took a lot of money to get done, so I couldn't live it.
Yeah,
I had to be like,
had to bite the lip and be like, all right.
And but the way I am as a brewer, I was just like, and the beer still turned out and tasted well, but certain aspects of it weren't correct, and so I was like really frustrated. But there was a lot of acceptance, especially at Harvest Festival, the first annual Harvest Festival that we got invited to. We had this really incredible acceptance of that beer in particular, and it was just an amazing experience to feel for the first time as owning your own brewery. So the alt prop was up and running. We were making beers. They were forcing us into like really big batches, and it was like, oh man, this is tough. But we were happy to be working, happy to be out selling, and then as we sat down with Charlie and Michelle, we realized that this was the open door.
Yeah.
And so really the way it went was like we're ready to retire like today.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of hit the ground running, and they hadn't brewed in like a few months, and they did have a large supply of beer, but it had gone down, to a smaller amount of beer.
Sure.
And so things were going off the board, and by the time we actually physically got in here, I just said, look, let's start doing collaboration beers, and we'll figure out with our professionals how we can do that.
Yeah.
And both of us get paid. And so we did that, and so that's when all the beers started coming online.
Yeah.
I think that was around the same time that I met you guys.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I was like, you guys gotta try the new beers.
Yeah.
And so so we let on the system. The previous brewer here, Clayton, amazing guy, the most humble human being, really a great dude. Just walking me through, talking brew house efficiencies and dialing in things and like, hey, what's this? What's this valve do? And just he was just completely the most awesome person.
Yeah.
And Clayton actually had a family situation to where they needed him to go back into ag.
Oh, wow.
And so the timing was really, it just worked out.
Sure.
Because one of the things to help us have the brewery be successful was cutting out the expense of a brewer.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's me.
Yeah.
And so but the timing was really good on that, and it was helpful for his family as well.
That's good.
But yeah, I got on the brew deck. It was amazing to jump back into my designs.
Yeah.
And they'd actually evolved on paper, even though I wasn't brewing them. I wasn't even home brewing them. Which is something I always feel weird about, because I know a lot of commercial brewers, they'll if they're in between jobs and stuff, they'll be home brewing.
Sure.
Right. I'm kind of weird about it. Like once I got into like the the big leagues or whatever, I'm just like, I'm gonna wait till I'm back.
Yeah, you don't want to go back to small stuff. Once you
I know a lot of guys
real
do.
Thing, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys do, but I just it felt so good to be back on the brew deck in the capacity of creativity and really getting into seeing things and thinking about things in terms of like, this is my stuff. I'm going to make alterations to it. Like I put a diaphragm on the Grant, just little things like that. And so, so we started brewing and here we are. So I think we're on batch like 14 now.
Wow.
Sweet.
Wow.
Yeah.
The thing I'm thinking of as you're kind of talking us through this journey, we've talked to a couple of different breweries now, and everyone's story is different, but there's so many similarities in the sense that you have to go through all these hurdles and pivot and say, all right, well, this isn't going to work. We're going to go this route. And my question related to that is, where does the passion to continue going after you keep, facing these challenges? What makes you say, all right, we're going to keep pushing forward. We want to do this. We have to do this. Obviously you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
What was the driving force for you?
I think some of it is, being reminded in podcasts. I try to absorb as much as I can, especially craft beer and brewing. They've got such a great wealth of podcasts in there, but you would hear the same story. Like, guys would say things like, it was absolutely insane to try to do what we did, and it made no sense. But then they had success,
Yeah.
And so we just felt that regardless of what the external forces, economy, all the other things, we had set out to do something, and we had a vision to do it, so we knew it was going to work, and we just had to just keep putting one foot in front of the other, fall down 7 times, get up 8, whatever it took. And so that's what it was. And I think, more than anything though, it was just, if I went back to a moment at Lake Arrowhead, just sitting in the beer garden and hearing a bunch of laughter and, people enjoying themselves. And that's what I, wanted to do. That was the side riches of this kind of work that always meant something to me. I knew just from even home brewing and sharing beers with, family and, a couple of beers into it, it's like, this is cool.
Yeah.
What are you personally most proud of?
Oh gosh. I guess, if I hadn't really thought about that, I think honestly, it would probably fall back on the tenacity or not letting go.
Drive, yeah.
Because especially when we were in distribution, it's pretty brutal as a tiny little startup, and I knew the level of quality with my beer, and I would, I've also had a lot of previous careers, sales and things like that, and I was making sure they didn't think that I was just brewing in my garage or whatever. I'm like, this is produced in a world-class facility, they had reached like 20,000 barrels at one point. We've got all the scientific instruments, letting them know that it was world-class beer and exciting, I felt like exciting designs, and but getting out there with the product and being proud of what it is, and trying to do all these cool, fun things and cool things that we think would work. And then you get out there, let's take samples, but they don't call you back.
Right.
Sure. And so it's just kind of a little bit of a cold market. And, us not being from the area might also have, a little bit of an impact on that as well. But in the midst of that, there was also people that did accept us and embrace us. And so, our sales were pretty good, and we weren't making anywhere near a living because the margins with alternating proprietorship were not really that great.
Sure.
So if we would have sold them a little more velocity and sold everything quick, we wouldn't have been making a living. But as as it was just me and my wife, and we couldn't really hire anybody or anything. We just had to get out there and sell.
Sure.
So I'm just like my dolly cases. And we had, like I said, there was people that helped us, and there's a Wayne Kurtz up in Paradise, owns a grocery store up there, and literally allowed me to have a pallet space inside of this cold box, which was made things way better because we had 60 barrels of beer.
Yeah.
And so, and I was lucky enough in Marysville, in that area. I forget the Olivehurst, I think it is.
Sure.
There was a fruit, cold box storage.
Yeah.
And he was like, all right. He gave me a chance, and without those two things, they might not have ever,
right.
I don't know how I could have kept it cold.
Every piece.
Right.
I would have had to go to Heretic and back,
Right.
out in Fairfield, which even the brewing alone was enough, to that 2-hour drive just to go dry hop.
Jeez.
It was just like, it was pretty insane. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Just like we were saying. So, but I don't know. I think part of it too, though, is there's that other side of the coin where, you see somebody post something on Instagram or whatever, and they're rocking the dang Strata on a trail somewhere, and it's
Cool to see it come to fruition.
Yeah. And so that gives you a lot of fuel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And and even Beyond the Pale, Ken's book,
Right.
the first couple of chapters when they're talking about sales,
Yeah.
it's like straight out of Glenn Ross. It's like, oh God, it's so brutal. I've been in sales before. It can be brutal.
Yeah. It absolutely
rejection. Yeah. So we just kept, I think, proud of the tenacity.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Just
I want to talk about your beers for a second, or at least a couple of minutes each, because there's such a innovative spirit and outside the box, pushing the envelope kind of vibe to what you do and what you're brewing. I mean, I just think about, a new brewery, and they probably want to get a couple of beers that are palatable to the masses.
Right.
And you're coming out and saying, I've got this fruity pebble sour. I've got rich cookies.
Off
You've got
the rip.
stuff
Off the
that's
rip.
just, exciting flavors.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about, where that kind of thought process and where that the vision behind the beer kind of comes from.
Yeah, I think mainly for us is kind of like looking at the beer scene one craft brewery at a time, from being avid beer people.
Sure.
And so we had visited so many breweries over the course of 15 years, my wife and I, and we just would take notes on wow, that's cool, or this is like it's all right, but we would look at the things that were really like cool in different breweries, and we would find the stuff that we thought was really cool. And so I got to a place where I thought some of the people like standing on the shoulders of giants, like some of the people that I really, really loved, I saw kind of what they were doing. Wild Works was one of the ones that I was just a huge fan of whenever we'd go out to see the kids. She was right at UNC. Wild Works is like, around the corner. And so, they had won a GABF for like a traditional beer, but then, they've got all these different variations of juicy bits and things like that. And so it's just, so they got the traditional thing, the hoppy thing, and then in the meantime, they've got these insane, pastry stouts and all these other culinary inspired, I mean, you name it, they've done it. So there's a lot of, candies and beers and all these different things. Like they had a taco gose.
Yeah,
that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So just innovation. And it's not for everybody.
Sure.
But I felt that if you had, even if it's not flagship but rotational, when I would go to Wellworks, I would always find what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I would have some kind of really nice beer to start in the traditional zone. I'd get into the hops, and then I'd go into some of their sours and barrel aged stuff. And it was like, it didn't matter, whatever was gone from the next time that I went, but I would find stuff that I liked, because overall everything that they were doing is epic. Right. It's no different than going over to Shred. And everything that Zach does is epic, but nothing's going to be the same from one month to the next.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, maybe he brings back stuff, but as far as I could tell, it looks like it's very rotational. And so we just wanted to be a fresh innovation brewery with rotational stuff. We'll probably have a couple beers that stick around, like the Mike D. I think is probably going to be a good idea.
Delicious.
Keep that, a nice American lager, keep that rolling. But I think overall, though, just having a lot of rotational stuff, and some other brewer said it, I think from Great Notion, he said, consistent beer, good, consistently better beer, great. And so the idea that, bouncing around from different ideas and tweaking things, like for example, on the Lux, from Lux to Jaspy Juice, I went ahead and tried a new Pilsner grain. It was a Hannah from Crisp. And, like just getting my head around that and seeing, what's the difference on that. And not a ton of changes, because then it's hard to really figure out what's going on. But, might like tweak one section of something from one beer to the next, and kind of like you start to get like a three-dimensional ability to kind of think about the beer, and but yeah, just trying to be innovation forward, rotational.
The thing about, at least to me, and maybe you can chime in here, but when we first met you, the thing that stuck out to me was how excited you were about
We were very excited.
And just every other time we came back in, you're like, hey, I've got this new thing coming out, like you got to try it. You've had this like true, genuine excitement for what you're doing. I think it shows in the product you're producing, and it's imaginative, it's creative, but at the end of the day, it's really good stuff.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that sort of passion for it. I think I just have admired the brewers that have created these beers that become something.
Yeah.
Sierra Nevada is obviously one of the greatest stories, if not the greatest story ever in craft beer.
Yeah.
And you know, I've heard a lot of people around town like, oh man, when I first tried that stuff, it was awful.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, it probably wasn't awful. I probably just weren't used to hops.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
more people would agree with that, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so new at the time. I mean,
Yeah.
most people hadn't had anything like that.
Yeah.
So to try and break into that space
Very
Yeah.
and to get people to say, hey,
Yeah.
I know you're used to this thing that's pretty void of flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which now we think of that pale ale, right? That was super intense for them.
Yeah,
now we
it's
think
more
of
of a
that as,
baseline,
oh, it's
yeah.
pretty
still
mild.
fantastic, but
Yeah. Try this torpedo.
Right.
Yeah. But that vision to push the hops, you know, that was, you know, not really been done. I mean, you know, maybe he was inspired by, you know, like Fritz or something like that. But even the Anchor Steam wasn't, I don't think it was probably anywhere near kind of where he had the vision to take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think you know, that sort of exciting, you know, intention and wanting to like learn how to do things like really the best ways possible to produce something that's beautiful for people to enjoy.
Sure.
I have kind of it's a passion, but it's a little bit of a, I don't know, sort of a competition with myself, you know.
Right.
I just want it to be amazing.
Yeah.
And great.
I want to ask you about this brewery in the community because I'll be very candid with you. There was a moment there where I was worried for you guys. I mean, taking over for a brewery that was so ingrained, so beloved, like you said, by the community. I was like, how is this going to work? And if, you know, we can see the evidence, it's worked out pretty darn well. And I wanted to ask you about what the reaction by the community has been like, how they embraced you. Were you nervous going into this thing? I'm sure there's some kind of transition, but what was
It's a great question.
What was that relationship with the community, and what's that been like?
Yeah, well, and that was the thing, you know, when we were sizing it up, we knew that we wanted to be who we were.
Yeah.
And I also had a great deal of respect for what was already going on here.
Of course.
And so there was that original vision of the double brewery idea. And so that was something that I think initially that was my game plan, was to try to do that.
Yeah.
And I thought that would make people happy. And I also felt that I would have enough room on like this side, these taps, to where whatever I was doing would be like, oh, this is also, you know, really cool.
Yeah.
But initially, I kind of had rose tinted glasses, you know, and the idea of doing both and all the comparisons, a defining moment where I realized that I needed to just shed all that and go 100% Paradise Brew Werks. We need to do what it is that we do, and not, you know, trying to like brew these other designs and things like that that came from other thinking. And I just had realized that I wasn't going to be happy doing that. I want to have the beers evolving, and you know, and so for many, maybe they weren't too happy about it, and we definitely felt some of that. It's still here. It's just some different thinking and a new brand name, and but you know, we've kept all the same, you know, music. You know, I mean, we're still assessing things after 2 months as far as feasibilities and things like that, but we still have all the same music. Every employee that wanted to be here is here.
Food trucks?
Yeah, the food trucks are the same, you know, similar arrangements on that. And
I saw you guys had some live music and everything out back. So the Oakland or Berkeley punk band that was specific. I know I've heard of those guys before.
Yeah,
and they
Stay Out.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. I think it's East Bay Punk. East Bay Punk is it. So, so I mean, the brewery has a life of its own as far as the a demographic and music, which we love.
Yeah,
we're also interested in developing a little bit of a younger scene.
Yeah,
and things that, you know, other people a little more rowdy, a little more rock and roll. That's what I'm about. And so, so we're definitely looking forward to that. In fact, we have some people will probably be familiar, but there's a band called Squid Girl, and we had them play, and it was just awesome. There was actually like a mosh pit going on.
Hell yeah.
Like in the back patio.
Sweet.
So we're like, that's
cool, because you guys have the space to do it now. Like even like to respect the older crowd too, you have like specific time frames.
Yeah,
like put it out like, hey, this band is gonna be here then.
Yeah.
And in the middle, when the bands aren't here, you know, you come back to just your old fashioned brewery.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it should coalesce, I believe the word is. we don't think that it'll be a problem whatsoever. I mean, Squid Girl was a great time, and
Yeah.
I think 2 days later it went back to something that was more what everyone's used to.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just here to kind of rock and roll, and every tank is full except for the little 7-backer, but every single tank is full, and we're getting ready to hit a bunch of more batches to really fill out that menu board. Rocktoberfest is coming up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Sierra Nevada not having theirs, we just thought, my gosh, we really need to do Rocktoberfest. So yeah, and it's like, well, we need to get this thing out there, and we're about to launch it this week. We teased it, but we're going to launch the Eventbrite, and
Sweet.
we got some great plans for music. The food is going to be amazing. There's going to be some beautiful, very first commemorative Stein, 1 liter Steins, and I'll be bringing a badass Märzen and a Weissbier.
Can't wait to be here.
Yeah.
A lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Jason, the last thing I had for you, I wanted to ask about, the journey as a whole. I know you've still got a lot left to do, a lot you still want to accomplish, but from where you started and where you started with us today, I mean, talking about seeing that Anchor Steam beer, and now you're here, you've got your brewery, you've got your full board of beers, I mean, full tanks. What has this journey been like for you? What does it mean to you to have gotten to this place? I know you're not done, but what does it mean to get here?
It's kind of weird. It's like sort of like a story that kind of vanishes behind you.
Yeah.
Every single point that I worked to reach, it's like now I just am like, whatever. Like the future is still like in front of me, and so I tend to have these like goals that I'm constantly after, I suppose. But our goal is to create an environment, a communal environment. As you've seen, we added the Oktoberfest tables.
Yeah.
We want to have a vibe in here that is something exciting, and beers that are exciting. And I'm hoping that when you step into Paradise Brew Werks, it's kind of like an elevated experience that feels a little bit different than other places around the state and things like that. And just trying to create an awesome environment. And so with that, there would be hopefully we can have more barrelage, and we're also working on the second tap room in Paradise. That's something I hadn't really even mentioned that, but we still have that original property that we talked about, and so that's a whole nother goal.
That's cool.
That would add a really nice secondary high margin draft sales. We love the vibe over at Cafe Coda in the back with Shippy and Tainer draft beer right there.
Every silver over there.
I saw you one time. And something like that is not terribly expensive. So we think that we have some friends, and we think we can get something done.
Sure.
And we're ultra excited to be here, and just super fired up to get out beers that hopefully everyone is really excited about. And taking note of things, what's working, and maybe something. I mean, so far we haven't seen anything that's not working. So, which is like, thank you. But yeah, hopefully winning a larger portion of acceptance, and becoming hopefully something that is beloved in the community, just as Secret Trail was. Is what we're shooting for. So.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, thank you so much. We really appreciate the time. It's been a lot of fun to have this discussion. I know we've been looking forward to this for a few months now. So thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very grateful to be a part of it, and it's been awesome to see your platform. I think it seems to be like evolving. Also.
It's been fun running so far. It's awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, man. Thank you.